Now, next up is a panel looking very topically, very fittingly at how the pandemic has impacted the world of business messaging. And moderating that panel is someone from a company name I do like, Global Teleconsult, GTC. So I'd like to welcome to MEF Connects Business Messaging, Jose Garcia. Jose, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Jose. We can hear you just fine. We can see you just fine. So I will exit now. I will leave you to it. It's your show, sir. Enjoy.
Mr. Williams can read my thoughts. I don't have to ask anything. So you can see me well. You can hear me well. First of all, I would like to say good morning to the people that join us from the American side. Good afternoon here in Europe. Good evening, Middle East and India. Hello to people on the African continent. This panel is hosted by iBasis, worth to be mentioned. And the topic is related to the pandemic crisis and the consequences on messaging in general. So not a big surprise when it comes to the topic. Obviously, anything that we discuss these days is related to messaging. And I'm surprised that messaging gives us so much content. We have so many panels, so many interesting panels these days, and so many different areas that are related to messaging in the telecoms field. So my panelists should be here. I don't see you, but probably you can speak up and introduce yourself.
Hello. Good morning to all. Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Martins. I'm VP of Messaging in iBasis, and it's a pleasure to be sharing these minutes with you and with the coming panelists.
They're popping up.
Hi.
Hello, Joanna.
My name is Joanna Kuligowska. Hi, guys. Nice to see you all. I work as Head of Global Market Intelligence at HAUD. Nice to be here. Amazing sessions today. Amazing to see old friends and all the faces. Shame we can't meet in real life, but hopefully soon.
Thanks, Joanna. Yasser?
Good morning from Florida. This is Yasser Waheed. I'm with mGage. I'm in charge of global connectivity and partnerships. This is a fantastic event so far. Really appreciate joining and enjoy, everybody.
Thank you, Ricardo, Yasser, Joanna. Probably a little introduction on my side. My name is Jose Garcia. I'm the CEO and founder of GTC, Global Telco Consult. We are a consultancy company that is providing services to the whole value chain, to enterprises, service providers, and operators. Now, I am speaking from Munich. I'm based in Munich, and Munich is very famous for one reason. Ricardo is already nodding. We are celebrating here every year the greatest festival in the world. So hosting like 7.5 million people within 16 days. And last year, guess what happened? The festival was canceled for the first time since Second World War. Unfortunately, that has been a consequence of the pandemic crisis, as you can imagine. And guess what? It could be that they cancel it again this year. So the economic loss last year was about 1.2 billion euros. So this is the revenues that to a big extent I lost by the city, by the region. 1.2 billion. Just to give you a reference, it's a bit more than double of the loss that has been caused by canceling the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Yeah, Mobile World Congress is like 500 million, 500 million. Oktoberfest is 1.2 billion. It could be like 5% of the global revenues that are related to enterprise messaging. So it's a significant amount. And even the German operators are mourning that obviously roaming revenues fall even further down. And in general, mobile data is obviously not consumed as in normal years. So is that a tragedy? Yeah, probably a little tragedy in the global context, probably of less weight. Now we will look into our little microcosmos of messaging and see if we find there a similar tragedy or if the news are a bit more optimistic. So, Ricardo, let's start with you. And I tell you why I want to start with you. You have been working for a European MNO. Yep. Actually, you changed to iBasis in the middle of the crisis. I think it was last summer.
Correct.
So, you experience the beginning of the crisis in the operator segment. You changed to a full-blooded wholesaler, I would say, that is iBasis, and you have seen actually both sides. Now, have you seen anything special in let's say the activities related to messaging on the operator side, on the service provider side, that is worth to be mentioned and worth to be shared here with the audience?
Yeah, let's say I would say definitely what I can highlight is the resilience of the messaging business sector, and if we compare with the different sectors of the economy, I think it's fair to say that business messaging was not so affected as other areas, and it found a way to, let's say, to accelerate the response from the economy to the crisis. I think the business we see, of course, and yesterday we had a couple of interesting insights from different verticals. The impact of the pandemic was different across verticals, but I think there is a key element is that let's say the acceleration factor that messaging business created on the activity, on the economy. And there is a big word that we mentioned about digitalization, and I think that was quite evident that messaging reacted very fast and very fast to the crisis. If there is a reaction to the crisis, this is shown through the messaging activity, and I think either on the mobile side, either on the aggregation side, that was quite evident, and it was actually a pleasant surprise for everyone.
Mm. And I mean, in general, have you experienced like a refocus on messaging when the pandemic crisis started, from the operator side or from the service provider side? Ricardo, was there any reaction?
Well, I think it was clear that messaging is a tool to solve some needs, and when people are in lockdown, enterprises have the need to communicate with people, and this is done through the multiple channels available. But I think what's clear is that messaging affirmed itself as the key, one of the key channels to address that. And then also on the perspective of the mobile operators, with let's say the revenue losses on roaming, they could see messaging as also a good revenue source. So if the messaging termination and terminating the messages properly and through the legitimate channels, it's a way to secure revenue, and that's also very important for the mobile community.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo, for your input. Yasser, I would like to continue with you. So you're working for mGage, a very relevant CPaaS provider, I would say, in the US, has been acquired by Kaleyra recently, correct?
That's right. We are. It's an exciting time for us. We're aiming to be bigger than we are. You can only do that with strength through other acquisitions. So we were lucky enough to combine with Kaleyra. It's still ongoing, but we do see a lot of opportunities brewing on the horizon. And I absolutely agree with Ricardo. Being in the enterprise space for many years now, mGage has a real, not just a microscopic, but a global view of what's happening in enterprise. Just mGage itself, we ourselves witnessed a 43% year-on-year rise in business last year, despite the COVID pandemic. And this itself is manifested in the rest of the retail industry going online. Being that there was a pandemic, one would think that you can't go out, you can't go visit a shopping mall, you can't go visit your favorite store. But the fact of the matter is, it was seen that the whole time during the pandemic, e-commerce actually grew in the US by $183 billion. So that is testament to the fact that messaging is just as relevant as, if not more relevant, for wannabe growth retailers. And this is, I mean, I totally agree with Ricardo's statement that it's something that everybody, not just the retailers, but the operators, should be taking a much closer look at.
Okay, so that's an optimistic view and input here from Yasser. Now, Joanna, you have been working for an SMS aggregator, you work for an operator group, now you're working for a service provider, actually specialized in SMS firewall systems. So you're making your journey career-wise through the whole value chain, and I think it gives you like a very broad perspective. Now, has there been any changes, any movements when the pandemic started in terms of fraud attempts? Have probably some players thought, okay, now everybody's working on rearranging, on preparing everything in the home office, buying the webcams. It would be a good time to probably start some fraud attempts to actually benefit from a commercial point of view.
In the global pandemic, when we all focused on protecting ourselves and our families, as well as helping the others in need, cyber criminals definitely took advantage of this opportunity to profit from our dependence on technology. And the dependence on technology became even more prominent in the lockdown because we turned all our lives online one day. I remember that day in UK when it came. I was still working with my previous company. One day we decided we will go work from home. And obviously that's been a big shift. And when we are focusing on bigger matters, there will always be individuals or companies that try to take advantage. And sadly, phishing and smishing was on the forefront of the fraud attempts we have seen surging in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And if you refer to smishing, could you give us an example? Would the smishing would it be related to COVID-19, or would it be independent of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis?
Actually, you name it, Jose. If there is an opportunity to smash for any data, there is probably a use case. But we have definitely seen more smishing attempts related to COVID-19. Smishing didn't happen in the global pandemic. It was already there. But obviously, as there were new use cases for HTTP messaging, there were new smishing attempts, and these were mostly related to COVID-19, sometimes imposing as critical communication coming from the NHS or similar. Therefore, here in the UK and also in other global markets, operators had to put really strong measures to try to mitigate that threat. Obviously, that would really hurt their subscribers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it could be as bad as now I'm thinking your PCR test has been positive. Please click on this link, to get further information.
For example, or even some information around the vaccine, or some information about, false information circling around about a vaccine, or some kind of critical communication that would basically just send you a link and try to get your personal data. Any personal data really is very valuable for fraudsters.
All right.
But also, we've seen a lot of very small attempts of fraud, like post fraud, right? We see here in the UK, very common use case is the Royal Mail smishing. You just basically get the SMS, well, your parcel is about to arrive, but then you have to pay $2.99 because there is a, Brexit tax on it or anything, and that just, sends you a link that you can click and basically try to steal your data.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Interesting. Wait, what about the typical and traditional bypass, Joanna, that so many aggregators are benefiting from? Have you seen any peaks there, or has it been more or less business as usual?
I guess, bypass is not a new thing. Grey routes have always existed. We definitely see grey routes being very, very present in the market. Actually, earlier this morning, Pamela Clark-Dixon from Omnia was sharing some very interesting numbers on the increase in the grey route activity in the global pandemic, and she forecasted the revenue loss of about $13.5 billion US dollars, which is almost double of the 2009 numbers. I can definitely confirm that at HAUD we have seen more grey routes, and most of them coming from the SIM farm entry point. And we see that grey SIM routes are really on the surge, and that is really globally across the market.
Okay, it seems you won't be jobless for the foreseeable time. So bad news in a context that actually securing our jobs, I would say. Sorry?
However, it did bring more, awareness around that topic. Yeah. And I think we have to bring the factor of education in, because of the smishing becoming so prominent and popular. Actually, it started being talked about in the news, and that has raised an important matter, that collaboration and education across the whole ecosystem is really needed to ensure trust of SMS as a channel.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Joanna. Ricardo, you wanted to comment on that?
No, just to stress that I fully agree with this point. I think we have on the ecosystem, we have a responsibility, and I think that the point Joanna mentioned about awareness and education is absolutely key. And the initiatives like MEF is doing with the sender ID registration, the code of conduct, and I think it's let's say, I think was the FBI's published some statistics that 20% of 20% of the people is not aware. Only 20% of the people is able to recognize the smishing message, and this is let's say a fact that we have to address, because we need to ensure that SMS stays as a trustable and reliable messaging channel, and this is for the operators, for the enterprises, and for the, let's say, the players like iBasis that are in the middle facilitating the connectivity and the reliability of the solutions. This is absolutely key, and this is a point we have to address. And also, I think a message to the operators, because this is, let's say, this is a critical channel, and if they want to protect not only the revenue leakage topic, but mostly the security and the spam and the phishing, there has to be some sort of investment on the operator side, because if the global spend on messaging activity is growing, there has to be some sort of investment also in technical solutions to prevent fraud, to prevent smishing, and to protect the end users. And of course, on the flip side, there was the monetization opportunity that goes hand to hand with this anti-fraud mechanisms, but I think that has to be taken into account by everyone.
Okay.
Well said, Ricardo. Yeah.
So Ricardo, you mentioned SMS as the channel in the context of the discussion. Now what about moving a bit on? So we referred to the old-fashioned, a bit rusty SMS within the context of enterprise messaging. Is it now a good time, Yasser, to look into alternative messaging channels and to work on the productization of newer messaging technologies for the enterprises?
Fantastic question, and this is for the viewers who are less familiar with the messaging industry. SMS may be old, but as they say, it's gold. It's the go-to channel that it's ubiquitous. It reaches everybody. You know, we all know how powerful it is. You know, but with this power comes responsibility that we take it forward. We enable other channels, other ways of communication, evolve, as it were. So, you know, this whole RCS or WhatsApp for Business, or even now we're looking into TikTok for Business. So these are all evolving from the core of SMS, and this whole powerful way of reaching the end user is not going away anytime soon. It's shown its resilience, it's shown its power, but with this comes a lot of responsibility that all of us work together to not pass a point where it becomes inaccessible. We can all ultimately offer our services, but we need to be able to show everybody that this power is available to everybody, not just you know, someone who has a wish to use WhatsApp for Business or RCS. But the evolving is happening. We all see the uptick in the evolution of SMS, and we're all for it. This is, you know, the SMS is always going to be there as a fallback. I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Okay, and is it now a particularly good moment, let's say, to look into alternative channels and to productize them, or would you say it doesn't make a difference if it's you know, a pandemic crisis or not? I mean, what I see a hype around CPaaS in general in the market. I see a hype about going public, you know, creating, you know, market capitalization, obviously following the very successful examples that we all know. Is that just a hype, or is that based on a very concrete demand that is ultimately generated by the enterprises? This is something that I try to answer for myself. Probably you can help me out.
Well, let's say we in the period of crisis, if you have a business that is growing, that's let's say something very interesting for everyone. So it's normal to see movements and attention over a sector that is growing, especially when that growth happens in the crisis mode. So in terms of this hype of new services, I have to be honest, I'm a bit skeptic, because I think what the crisis have proven is that, let's say, the old and reliable channel is here to address all the needs. And in a period of crisis, you need to solve problems, and therefore the margin to innovation and the focus on new things or experimentalism, it's normally narrowed. I'm not saying that this is not an opportunity, but we are here to, or the pandemic and the COVID raised problems, and that those problems had to be addressed. And what the new use cases are showing is that the solution is either directly the SMS, or the SMS is included on a mechanism of the use case. I register, and then as part of my register to receive the vaccine, I get an SMS. So SMS is the channel because it's universal, it's there, and people have trust on it. And we know that, let's say, SMS has all these challenges about fraud and security, and we need to protect. But what about security and fraud in RCS or on TikTok for business or whatever? So I think if it's something that is mature, has still issues to solve on a period of crisis, I think people tend to play safe, and that's a bit my insight.
Yeah. What about the T's and C's on WhatsApp for Business? Question mark. Yeah. So yeah, all those channels are full of question marks that are related to policies that might be a bit uncertain, but they're still like neutral, clear operator channels that are supported like RCS, Ricardo. So an innovative channel can still be one that is an operator clear channel. So there could be like a way, you know, in order to have a balance. Yeah, Tony?
By all means, I think there is a space for all channels, and there is a degree of development of each market that is different. So the market in, I don't know, just say in Germany is not the same like is in Algeria or South Africa. So I think the solution has to adapt to the market, and the solution, whatever it is, has to solve a need. And I'm sure that there is a role for RCS, but I'm not sure if that role is right now as the primary channel, because again, from the insights we have, SMS channel has been the solution most looked for by enterprises and governments, health authorities to communicate with people.
Okay. I mean, it's always interesting to see the different views. You know, if you speak to operators, they have invested so much money into RCS, so they really have to stick to it, and they are full of hope, I have to say. I guess the wholesalers and service providers are more realistic. They see the money counts, they see the traffic flowing, and they focus obviously on what they consider most critical for the enterprises right now.
Jose, I'd like to just add that I think there's an inflection point after which, you know, the use cases and the capability of these evolving systems, they all hold their own, but there's certain inflection points, as Ricardo rightly says, in different markets where you have to be careful after which how relevant it remains. So that's what I'd like to add to Ricardo's comments. But I do agree with him. You have to be somewhat skeptic, but you have to be falling back on the ubiquitous SMS, I think, which is what most of us are doing. And you know, after this, I think the innovations are not going to end. They're only going to help this industry.
Okay, so we pray for keeping the traditional enterprise messaging channel SMS healthy and driving the revenues and securing all our jobs. Joanna, looking into the comments of the audience, actually they relate mostly to security, to phishing phenomenon. So actually to the topic that we discussed with you. So this is a topic that is touching the nerve, and I could say, and we don't have much more time here, another 3 minutes to go, so we will need to come to an end. Otherwise, Joanna, I think we could dedicate more time to this topic, since it remains a very hot one, no matter if we have a global pandemic or not. I hope we won't have it for long, to be honest, you know, and not forever, you know. We'll give it a couple of months and hope we have a vaccine and things get changed. But hope is the last that we will lose, obviously. Now, looking forward, what recommendation would you give to the operators when it comes to messaging activities for the rest of the year? Any thoughts here as a final conclusion?
Yeah, definitely. I really hear what the guys are saying. I perfectly agree. In the times of crisis, it's not the time to rock the boat. SMS is great. It just works. Friday afternoon, we all know Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram down for about an hour. World was in panic. I was just saying, guys, you forgot about texting. So, you know, SMS is the only channel that works no matter what. And I think we should all make sure as an ecosystem that we work towards cleaning it up. I would still recommend mobile operators to look into the future, because if any of you has been following a presentation of Nick Lane and him showing the data Mobile Square prepared on the actual potential of revenue, the revenue opportunity there is in business messaging, it's actually great for all of us. It's great for SMS as a channel, but not every use case can be utilized by SMS. There are some obviously richer demands within enterprise sectors, demand for a more conversational, richer channel that will be satisfied by solutions like RCS. So I would say, yeah, we have to look into the future, but in the time of crisis, focusing on building trust.
So thank you, Joanna. I have to add something. I have to correct myself. We still have more minutes. We have like almost 10 minutes to go, which is good news. So we don't have to rush. And I tell you why it's good news, because we have some questions, Joanna, and we have also questions for you. Yeah, I told you with a broad topic. So one question from my friend Anurag Agarwal from Tata. Then this question is specifically for Joanna. How does HAUD firewall block smishing attempts? Yeah. Do you read the SMS content? What about data privacy and GDPR? Anything you can comment on that, Joanna?
Obviously, we're fully GDPR compliant, and that means that in some markets, obviously there are restrictions on content filtering. What we do is we use, again, in different markets, combination of technology, and that can be anything from whitelisting, blacklisting sender IDs, through working with the operator to implement the right sender implementation policy as well, but also looking at links in the message and blocking based on metrics. What is important to mention is that a lot of smishing attempts does occur on SIM farm entry point, and when we look into that particularly that part of the network, we also use a lot of advanced analytics and traffic pattern monitoring to detect SIM box pattern. And then that is a very effective way of blocking. If that answers your question, Anu.
Joanna, am I understanding correctly? So you say that most smishing attacks coming through SIM farms?
Yeah, we see definitely. Again, it varies from one market to another. It really depends on many things, and we really need to touch the topic of the price point of the message, because you know, smishing has to have conversion value, so it will look for a price point. If we look at markets as UK, where actually the price of the message is relatively low, we see a lot of smishing attempts on direct connections. Yeah, but in markets where price per message is significantly higher, this is just too expensive for fraudsters to use as a channel. So then in those markets, we see majority of unsolicited traffic, big spam volumes, and smishing originating from the SIM farm entry point.
Okay, now I have a personal question. What about the operators? I mean, are the operators interested enough in protecting their subscribers from smishing attacks? This is where I sometimes have my doubts. You know, Joanna, Yasser, Ricardo, whoever wants to answer, but I would like to have an answer on that.
Yeah, let's say, being that I was in the operator until last year, and I actually moved from the operator to iBasis in the middle of the pandemic, so without going to the office to say goodbye or not to going to the office to say hi, which is quite strange. But this is to say that the operators are interested. The operators are concerned. I think they probably need some support from the ecosystem and from associations like MEF, from players like iBasis, to know what are the available solutions, because the operators, they want to protect their customers, to avoid spam and to avoid fraud, but they are not fully aware of all the solutions available in the market. So I think there is a need to raise awareness and to raise, I wouldn't say education, just to mention what are the solutions available, and that not all of them are expensive. Nowadays, commercial models available in the industry, let's say, can allow to implement solutions without major capex or opex investments. So I think there is a need to raise awareness of the solutions available, but I don't think that the operators are not interested. They are. I don't have many doubts about that.
Completely agree with you, Ricardo. They are very concerned. I think just one sentence to add here, because cost of fraud is huge for the operators. It's difficult to quantify because it really goes far beyond monetary losses. Most importantly, it hurts the subscriber experience and damages the trust that customers put in the brand of the operator itself, and that's a big concern for majority of the operators, the subscriber base, the asset.
Yeah, but at the same time, Joanna, if I see so many operators currently worldwide increasing the rates from 1 cent to 7 cents, isn't the focus more on the monetization rather than on the protection of the subscribers or even of the network?
It does vary from one market to another. I agree with you, Jose. We see some markets increasing quite steeply. In reality, there are different price points that the enterprises are willing to pay for an SMS depending on its criticality. I do believe that it is imperative for the MNOs to consider implementing flexible and elastic pricing in order to keep business messaging as a sustainable channel. I think the focus of the monetization is obviously coming from the decrease on revenues for operators coming from other service lines, and therefore, trying to squeeze out as much from the opportunity to monetize A2P SMS when voice and data is completely down in the global pandemic.
So, Jose, this is exactly what I meant by an inflection point or a point of elasticity, so that we don't cause, or with this success, we don't cause a decay in the messaging business. Year over year, Juniper Research said there was a close to 10% increase worldwide from brands and enterprises to almost 3.5 trillion. So this should keep the operators interested to, allow everybody to access this this power.
Okay. And any thoughts, Yasser, on the pricing trends and messaging? I mean, you as a pure wholesaler that is somehow benefiting also in the price trends, or Yasser, how do you see it? So
with our combination with Kalera, we will be stepping more into international pricing, which is where the major difference is showing up to be. We do a lot of domestic, so we end up benefiting from the local direct partnerships we have. But clearly, as Joanna said, there is an international price point or premium price point that really needs to be judged carefully to allow for the growth.
Okay, good. So what do you expect for the next 6 months? Will the operators focus rather on monetization, on protection, or on productization? The last round.
I think it goes end to end, because with the same solutions, you can cover both objectives. You can protect the network, attack fraud, and at the same time monetize better because you avoid revenue leakage.
Yeah. Good. Yes, sir, Joanna.
Well, agree with Ricardo, although I do think that the operators having worked in operator world as well, do need to prioritize sometimes, and definitely monetization and protection will be on the forefront, and the education is needed to show that those services can be maybe used also for other business channels.
Okay, good. Yasser?
Onwards with innovation, stick with SMS. Simple.
Okay, excellent. So now we're done. Finally, we're done. Time is up, time is up. And I'm very, very thankful also for the optimistic message that you are passing on to the market. We need optimism in general, and if the optimism comes from our professional environment, if it comes from messaging, if it comes from the ecosystem, if it comes from mGage, iBasis, and HAUD, it's all welcome. Yeah. So absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot.
I hope we contributed, to have a good time this afternoon for many people, and I hope you stay healthy first of all, and continue smiling as you are right now. That provides energy. I feel it on the other side. Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Have a good day. Thanks, guys.
Bye.